Well, greetings. Welcome to our CityRise podcast. I'm Mark Edworthy, and glad to have today Andy Dennis, who is the Baptist Student Ministry Director of a couple campuses, both Rice and the Medical Center. And we always love to hear what our partners are doing. So just take a moment, introduce yourself, your family, and how long have you been at the BSM?
Sure. Thanks, Mark. My name is Andy Dennis, and as you said, I'm the director at Rice and the Med Center. I've been doing Baptist student ministry work since 1999.
Okay.
This will be year 25 for me in August. So yeah, it's been a while for me. And I started at Texas State that year. Was Southwest Texas at the time.
Right.
And then I was at Howard Payne for 7 years, and in Brownwood, Texas.
Sure.
And then I've been at Rice and the Med Center since 2007.
Okay. Now, where did you do your undergraduate work, and were you affected by ministry there as a student?
Yeah, I was I'm originally from Nashville, Tennessee.
Okay.
So growing up in Nashville, I wanted to stay in state, and I looked at some of the Baptist schools that were there. And in East Tennessee, there's a school called Carson Newman.
Yeah.
Was college at the time. Now it's Carson Newman University in Jefferson City, Tennessee, which is just about 30 minutes outside of Knoxville.
Okay.
It was there that I felt called to ministry. I was very involved in student ministry, but I think the Lord really got a hold of me during a spring break mission trip when I was in Baxley, Georgia, at a children's home, painting a barn roof. Where
there you go.
The Lord got a hold of me and told me, pointed out that ministry is not just preaching and singing and youth ministry. Like there are other areas that I could have served, and it was through my campus ministry that I was able to do that. And I guess looks like I've spent almost 25 years trying to recapture those kinds of experiences I had in college as well.
Okay, so how do you get from Tennessee to Texas?
Well, after graduation, I served with the North American Mission Board for 2 years, doing resort ministry in South Florida in Fort Myers.
Yeah,
and I was there reaching the beach community and. Interestingly enough, snowbirds and folks like that who were there for temporary time, saw the Lord work and felt like that was the career for me. Like I was going to work in resort communities for the rest of my life, doing missions. So to focus on missions, at the time, out of the Baptist schools, the one that had the best missions and evangelism program was Southwestern.
Okay.
And at the time, it was the least controversial as well,
right?
And so it was a great opportunity for me to move out here and to finish up my seminary work. So I took I had 3 years, and I was finished with my MDiv as quickly as I could, so I could get back out to the mission field.
Sure.
And so I was going back to the North American Mission Board. They had changed some of their focuses from ministry based things to church planning, which is not necessarily how I felt like I was gifted.
Right.
And so when that happened, I had several interviews with resort ministries in Baltimore and Daytona Beach and San Antonio. And all of them fell through. And so I wasn't sure. And as far as the North American Mission Board went, I was approved for missionary service, but never appointed because of the transitions they were making at the time.
Okay.
So I was just trying to discern the Lord's voice, and I was working at the Baptist building in Dallas for during that transition period between seminary and my next season of life.
Right.
And I was across the hall from the student ministry, and one of my friends said, "Hey, have you thought about Andy for this one position?" They had a guy quit at Texas State 2 weeks before classes started.
Wow.
And so they asked if they would consider me, and they said, "Well, we'll give you an interim job, and if it works out, then great, and if not, then
beautiful
you're
city.
free to go." So
all right. So you were single at that time.
I was single at the time.
All right. How'd you meet your wife?
Jennifer and I met through student ministry as well. We were both summer missionaries in different locations, but we developed our friendship there. I was serving in St. Petersburg Beach, Florida at the time, while I was between my sophomore and junior year, and Jennifer was serving in Clearwater Beach at the time, and our teams would work together on the weekends, and so we would see each other, and we developed a really deep friendship then.
Sure.
Had some time that's a longer story between that, about 10 years. But we reconnected at seminary, and that was the place where we deepened our friendship from just friends to dating and marriage.
Well, my background for almost 3 decades, we were overseas as missionaries, and I remember training new missionaries, and we used to make the statement, Jesus only had one term of ministry, 3 years. And on the college campus, your ministry changes not just every 3 or 4 years, but every year. New people coming, new people leaving. What are some strategic insights you would say, these are things I've learned we've got to do well because of that limited window?
Yeah, I mean, I think any good campus minister would tell you that those first 2 weeks, 3 weeks of class are critical because you have to be reaching freshmen. Yeah. And if you're not reaching new students, then you're only like a generation away from losing everything. And so that's the challenge, right? Of trying to reach new students and to do that well. I think the other key for us is making sure that we are being faithful to share the gospel, because we can have a lot of Christian students and have a nice place where Christians can feel comfortable and hang out with each other. But I think that it's important that students hear the gospel and have a chance to respond. Yeah. So it's not just the freshmen, but it's also reaching the lost, because it's not really about our comfort. It's about making sure that the gospel is shared. Because I think the campus is one of the most strategic places in our culture that the gospel can be shared, because students are still in that place where they're trying to decide what kind of person am I going to be, and asking that question. Yeah. When you get to your 30s and 40s, you're kind of set, but your late teens, your early 20s, you're still trying to decide what do I believe and what kind of person do I want to be. Sure. And I think that that's a very strategic time for the gospel to intervene and answer some of those difficult questions that students have.
Sitting here thinking 40 years ago, I was the BSM president at my university. We had different titles back then.
Sure, yeah.
But so many opportunities to grow as a leader. I'm sure that's a big part of what you do. Sharing the gospel, but also building leadership capacity in these students. Are there special programs, retreats? How do you go about raising up and training these guys and gals to lead out? Yeah,
I think a lot of that is done with just experience, right? Because it's not just the 4 years that I have these students on campus. Like, my goal is to make sure that when they leave the campus, that they are equipped to serve in a local church, right? And so by when they walk into a local church, they can, they go through whatever membership class there is to say, I know how to share the gospel. I know how to lead a small group. I know how to lead a mission trip. Yeah. Like, those kinds of things for the local church are really important, right? To have someone who's fully equipped to do the work of the gospel in your local church is important. Yeah. So we do that through our small groups. We do that through. I always say you can do more discipleship on a mission trip than you can do in a year's worth of small groups and preaching, right? Yeah. And we have some worship, but where it really happens is in the small groups and then the one-on-one with our staff or leaders, more mature student leaders. Like, that's where it really kind of firms up and those concepts become reality.
Well, I appreciate you bringing up the church, because it seems like some churches may see you as a competition. That how do you kind of practically encourage folks? Do you have churches come alongside of you, or what are some ways that churches can get involved and that churches can build better pathways for students into their membership?
Sure. Yeah, I think that my encouragement to our students is that the kingdom of God is not 18 to 22. And when you get out, when you graduate from college, you're going to need a community you're going to look for a community that you can go to, you can share your life with. That's not like the one that you have in your dorm.
Right.
Like, you can't just show up in your pajamas, and like, you need that community and to know that the kingdom of God is, our senior adults as well as our, the babies in the nursery. Like,
Right.
you have to be able to be participating in that community. And so for them, I think that's an important realization, is how do I use my giftedness? And that's a big part of my conversation too. We're not the church.
Right.
We function with some of those things, but we're a missionary group. We're not the church. We may do similar things, but we're not going to function as a church.
Right.
And so we are the missions arm of your church. Like, there are lots of people who may never set foot on our campus, but through supporting us in prayer, or even financially, as some folks do, we become that opportunity to do ministry on behalf of the church, much like our partners in any other country around the world. Those are the things. We do have churches that help sponsor our weekly outreach lunches, which is probably about 2/3, 3/4 that group is not Christian. And then we have our church partners who will support financially, and then we have people who will come and prayer walk the campus. Like, prayer is the foundation of everything we do. So if we're not engaged prayerfully in tearing down the spiritual walls that are there, then that's those are the first boots on the ground there, to really do the work of the Spirit on our campus.
Well, some of our listeners will be workers in other nonprofits across the range, from mental health to physical health to trafficking to refugee work.
Sure.
How would you see some of these coming alongside, or would there be a practical way that you could connect with some of these partners, or that they could inquire and find out maybe a good connection to encourage you, or maybe to build bridges, especially if you may have international students or some other pockets?
Sure. I think that college students in particular, when you talk about the kinds of things that you've mentioned just now, I mean, I think college students are I would say they're probably a better resource for you than even some of our church members might be. When it comes to like being champions for human trafficking, or for the the underserved populations in our city, like these are the people that these students in particular, especially at Rice, like really do crave that kind of justice and the possibility of inviting people to come alongside you, to work alongside you, maybe non-Christians who are looking at that and seeing, this is what I thought the church was going to be about. Maybe they see the hands and feet of Jesus lived out in anti-human trafficking, or within groups that are doing stuff to defeat poverty, or education and those kinds of things. I think that our students could be a rich resource for those people who are willing to reach out. I would also say, you mentioned mental health, and I know that I've met some of those folks in our network as well. I think that's going to be an ongoing issue for students for the next 10 years, right? Yeah. The pandemic has really done a lot, or maybe not done a lot, but made helped realize maybe some of the issues that were lying underneath. And so I think that, we have, I think 700 students to one counselor on campus, and at our public universities, including U of H and TSU and the multiple community colleges in our city. There are many more students who have mental health needs that, if it were available to them, I think they would love to take advantage of some of those things.
Well, if someone's listening and say, "Hey, I would like to know more," how would they contact you?
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook. I'm just Andy Dennis. You can search for me. I think my handle is andrew.m.dennis on Facebook, and then Instagram I'm the Andy Dennis or Rice Al BSM.
Okay.
Either one of those. If you message us there, we'll be able to get back with you as well.
Well, we always love to hear stories, and I usually end with this. Can you think of a student that you, looking back, said, well, when I saw this guy or this young lady as a freshman, maybe withdrawn, maybe not self-confident, maybe not even knowing the Lord, but you saw over 3, 4, 5 years just a transformation in a life. Obviously don't need to know of a name, but we love to hear how the Lord works in all different types of circumstances. Would you have one that comes to mind?
Yeah, there was a student I had several years ago. He's a physician now, but he showed up one day, and at our lunch it said, we just have our signs up that says BSM free lunch.
Right.
And he walked in and he said, what is BSM? Mm-hmm. And I explained to him, and so he sat down, ate the Chick-fil-A lunch that we have, and then we engaged further in conversation. I began to meet with him regularly. And later he said, I didn't care if BSM stood for big smelly morons. I was going to show up for lunch.
Exactly.
And over time, we really developed this deep relationship, and that he developed a heart for serving. Wow. Went on almost every mission trip with us. Really deepened his faith and his involvement in that. Yeah. He, in addition to that, he went to med school here in Houston and then served on several medical mission teams with me. And since then, I know that he's been overseas several other times to serve in, I think most recently in Ukraine, alongside some of the Doctors Without Borders and things like that, or Samaritan's Purse, I think is who he went with, to do some of those things. But the things that the heart for serving others was something that, outside of a free lunch, that he would not have found us otherwise, developed a heart for serving others and serving the Lord that started as a student at our university. That was the place where he really developed a heart to serve that has translated here 10 years out.
Sure. Well, great. And I know that's one of multitudes. And appreciate you taking the time. I hope that our listeners are now thirsty and curious to learn more about the BSM ministry. You're on 2 campuses, but obviously other campuses have other workers. And I would encourage our listeners to reach out to Andy, to others. And who knows what the next student may be waiting for your contact as well. So again, thank you for joining us on CityRise. God bless.
Thank you.